Hey everyone. So I'm actually in Ashland right now at the Dober Tea House, and let me turn my computer a little bit here. I want to share these reflections that I notice such a powerful duality between life when we experience a quality of choicelessness, when we're in the flow of making decisions, choosing, but there isn't this fixed and sort of very stubborn idea of I'm choosing between options, versus when we are choosing between options and we have a very stark awareness of this choice or that choice, this path or that path. And it's really interesting because I think all of us at any moment in time can probably identify a set of options or paths or choices in front of us in regards to all these different aspects of our life. But when you think about it, right now, you have a lot of potential theoretical options, right? You can pick your nose, you can pick your friend's nose, you can stop watching this video, you can comment on this video, you can brush your hair, you can start stretching, you can fill out a form to run for the president of the United States in 2020. You can close your eyes, you can count your breath, you can run, you can get in your car, you can move out of your house. I mean, theoretically, there are all kinds of options in front of us and paths that we can take in life. But of course, none of us are aware of all of them, right? So the mind creates and perceives specific options. And those options are taken as important, something that we need to resolve. It's something that we need to figure out. And if we can resolve it, if we can disentangle ourselves from this confusion, then the path of our life will be clear. Then we feel we can walk in peace and we can live fully in this moment. But these options, like what choice do I make? Where do I send my child to school? What socks do I wear? What do I say to this person? How do I say it? So let me speak a little bit about this now, because I'm learning on my own journey that while I often find myself at an impasse relative to choices, and this is occurring right now for me as I'm at the very, very end of working with my mastering engineer in completing my album, there are always different options to consider. Like, what do I do with this song? Do I raise the levels? Like, keep the levels down? And the mind creates pros and cons for everything. And it's a funny thing because we can be so logical about life and weigh everything according to what's reasonable, what makes sense, right? Like, well, this is good for me if I do this. This is good for me if I do that. Which one's better? But there's life just beyond that. There's a way of seeing, there's a way of relating that doesn't negate the importance of logic and conscious, deliberate, discerning thought. But it doesn't place that discerning, logical thought at the forefront and the determinant of our peace and our sense that we are free and whole to move forward. It's where we perceive these options and we get caught up and tangled in the sense of, oh, I can't be peaceful right now. That's where, in a sense, we've lost our connection to love. We've lost connection to our source. And we decide that our peace and our wholeness, which is, big, it's like all of the universe, all of creation is an immense statement and it's one with itself. So our oneness, the truth of oneness, that will come back once I decide what color shoes to wear, once I decide what to do with a song, once I decide what to do with this relationship. And the mind creates the perception of lesser and bigger problems. And that's why suffering isn't really equivocable to certain contexts, right? You can look at people in the world that are seemingly in difficult situations, but they're not necessarily suffering more or less than people in seemingly less difficult situations, because the mind will create this immensity of pain, of struggle, of conflict in anything. It doesn't really matter whether it's poverty or the color of your shoes. We all know what it's like to suffer. And we also know what it's like to put our problems into perspective, right? We can always say, okay, well, this is relatively small and unimportant, so I'm not going to let myself get stressed out about this. And theoretically, we can always, you know, give a greater perspective to our problems, but that's not the answer, right? You can kind of climb the ladder of there's always a bigger problem or things could always get worse, but that ladder has no end. And it basically says this level of struggle isn't qualified for suffering and struggle and pain, but this level of confusion, yeah, that, you know, that makes sense. That's a real problem. And really, it's the mind that decides where the problems are. The mind decides, we decide. Consciousness chooses to fixate on where it believes at a certain point, okay, now this is worth being worried about. This is worth losing my peace. This is worth disconnecting from the wholeness and the source of creation. It has to believe that something so significant, so important. And so there's something to be said about feeling what we're feeling the energy of confusion, but to not necessarily invest and embellish that with the stressful and the worried neurosis that can come with trying to figure things out and to resolve answers. And so the inquiry that I hold, what is it like to abide in a quality of choicelessness where we know first and foremost that the choices that we make are not determining our peacefulness. They're not solving the dilemma of our perceived lostness and confusion in life. I find for myself that it takes me into this sort of sweet invitation that I almost don't want to see. It's like, really? Like a beautiful woman standing out in the corner saying, hey, look, I'm here. Right? There is something sweet and beautiful, but I almost don't want to accept it because to accept it would mean all of this isn't where the answer is. And it can feel invalidating to this part of me, to that identity structure that's deeply desiring to resolve and adamantly fixed, identified with the sense of the clarity that I'm seeking in my own life really comes from fixing this problem, answering this question, finding the right choice. But to move where this sort of mysterious calling of grace and peace and beauty and love, it shifts our perception of everything. It elevates our consciousness to a place where we remember that we're not making choices in life. We're dancing. We're in this art. We're in this beautiful co-creation. And we reconnect with our right, our birthright to be creators, to live in joy and to live in love. And that our deepest blessing, our deepest gift to ourselves and to everyone is to live as the love that we are, to wholeheartedly give ourselves to our beauty and to our love. And I find when I reconnect with that, it seems to take me on a path that's contrary to the one that I thought it would be. It's like when we're hooked in options and choices, we think in very linear, two-dimensional terms. And those terms aren't accurate to what's actually going on in life. But I find when I return to the love that I am, the immediacy and the stress that I'm perceiving falls away. And a curiosity and a humility and a space to learn, a space to see clearly, and an acknowledgement that I don't see what I am looking at according to what it really is. That I'm seeing a reality of adversity, one path leading to suffering, one path leading to salvation. This option might hurt me, this option might hurt me, where it's a struggle with life. So there's an acknowledgement of, okay, I'm not going to trust my default state of perception. To wholeheartedly really seek to return and reconnect to the love that we are in our life and experience that and to express that. Recently, I had the opportunity, if you watched my last video, I was stuck in traffic. And what followed there afterwards, I actually slept in my van on I-5 overnight because I was plowed in. And there was another man just 50 feet away who got locked out of his truck. So he slept in my van with me. I created a space for him, happened to have all these extra blankets, and we were warm. We were cared for, we were loved, we were safe. In the morning, I got plowed out. We got a tow truck. The tow trucks weren't available because they were so busy the night before, but in the morning they finally came, they helped him, and all was well. But it's like that experience, like I was placed right there next to him. I had a van, I had blankets. How many people on the road have a space to sleep, a space to share, blankets to share, right? We both happen to be stopped in the same area. That's where miracles are. Miracles are exchanges of love. And often, and I said this in the last video from our Course in Miracles, this idea that those who temporarily have more are giving to those who temporarily have less, but it's a revelation for everyone to realize that the flow of love moves however it wants to. And there's this experience in that state, in that journey that I share with this beautiful man, that we are just agents, we're just instruments. And so in returning to the love that we are, it's more of a, what do you want of me? And the answer might not be pick this choice, right? It might be a different frame of perception that kind of makes these choices fall into a different place. It gives a different perspective on what we were otherwise seeing. It's like, do I scratch my head or pick my nose? Love might give you a different frame of reference to see things from a different perspective. It's really important that we practice that in our own life. And I'm always learning that the way we practice that is really by unfixing our mind in terms of what the next moment has to look like. The most beautiful prayer that I'm learning right now is so open-ended. It's use me to be an instrument. Today, use me to be an instrument, an agent of love. And that's not saying in this way, in this way, in this way, but in the way that I am created, right? So that when I'm an instrument, I'm giving what I've been given. And so I taste the fruits of what I have inside, and I get to share it, and we all benefit. That reveals everything. And so in the van last night, we're listening to my music because I'm reviewing it. And he was like, man, I didn't think I would like your music, but I really like it. He actually fell asleep listening to my music. And that temporarily brought me into this place of, I'm making these options, I'm figuring these things out, but this music is love. This music is a gift that's been given to me to share. And for a moment, I was like remembering, and I just prayed with it. I prayed in the morning too. Thank you for this music. Thank you for making me an instrument of music and beauty. And may I share this with the world as widely as possible. Make me an instrument for this music. So grateful for that. And that prayer I find is so important. And I choose to stay connected to that as I make these final touches. And so I just invite all of us to reconnect to the beauty and the gifts that we've been given, and to remember to offer ourselves and stay connected to how we are instruments, that we offer ourselves in service and healing to one another, and that we heal together. And that just brings everything into perspective.